Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. And tonight, Rodney, once again, I'm really hooked on this Pepsi Next. Real cola taste, only 60 calories per 12-ounce can, and it is magnificent. Pick you up some Pepsi next time you're in your local supermarket. All right, something else that's got me pumped up is the fact that the college football season basically is here. 3 weeks from this past Saturday, Alabama will kick it off against Michigan. And with that in mind, Rodney, the Tide held its first scrimmage and one of only 2 scrimmages of fall camp on Saturday at the stadium. Now, obviously, we only get to watch the warm-ups. Our cameras have to leave as well, but based on the stats, based on Coach Sabin's comments afterwards and you talking with your sources, I want you just to give us some analysis of what occurred at the scrimmage. We're going to roll some video from some of the pre-scrimmage highlights and just talk about what you found out so far.
Well, I mean, again, I think one of the things, Gary, that I found interesting was Michael Williams yesterday, the tight end, during the interview. He talked about how normally in every first scrimmage of a fall camp, how Nick Sabin has always told the team we need to become more physical, we've got to get more physical. And he said basically, following this camp, it's almost just the opposite. You know, how can you get more physical than what they displayed last Saturday? So I think right now everyone is generally pleased with the progress that's being made, and the first scrimmage was a success.
Interesting that you say that, because that's what everybody's talking about. Nico Johnson really kind of echoed Michael Williams' comments that, you know what, we really got after it. All scrimmages are physical, but Nico Johnson said this was the most physical scrimmage by far that he's had in any fall camp since he's been here, and he's a senior. That's saying something. Well, a lot of guys got dinged up, too.
I mean, Gary, when you look at this team, I mean, that's what you would expect. I mean, I said last week that, you know, as far as the physical appearance of this team, they certainly look as good as 2011, which I thought was the best-looking physical team I'd ever seen at Alabama, even better than 2009. So, again, I mean, I think this team, when you're talking about a physical team, there's no doubt that they're on par with some of the best that's been around.
Rodney, a few numbers. Coach Sabin said he wanted to limit Eddie Lacy's carries to no more than 10. He got 8 rushes for 57 yards. That's right on par with his career average of over 7 yards per carry. So obviously he continues to come back from that turf toe, but seemed to have played pretty well.
Yeah, you know, the people that I've talked to that were there, Gary actually had an opportunity to see him play out that 57 yards. I think it was a little bit more than that,
wow,
actually. But, you know, Eddie Lacy seems to be progressing really well. Everyone says he ran extremely well on Saturday. D. Hart ran well. Certainly T.J. Yeldon's a guy that's in the mix. You saw, we've talked about Justin Fowler and as a running back, but also, and we had mentioned this previously, to watch out for him possibly making a contribution as an H-back. And Michael Williams even said yesterday that, you know, Justin Fowler has all the tools to be very good when his opportunity comes as an H-back in terms of blocking, his ability to catch the ball. So he's becoming kind of a multi-dimensional type player, versatile player. And we've seen Nick Sabin, one of the keys in his recruiting is recruiting players who are very versatile.
And Rodney, we saw plenty of A.J. McCarron in those video highlights pre-scrimmage. Good numbers for him, reported numbers. Again, these are just estimates from the Sports Information Department, but they had McCarron going 19 of 29 for 222 yards and a touchdown, and those are good, solid numbers against a very good defense.
Yeah, and you know, I said, you know, last week that I thought A.J. threw the ball in the fan day practice as well as I'd seen him throw it, and I think he's really starting to mature. He's really gained a lot of confidence, and I think that you know, this year could be a really good year for him.
And defensively, Trey DePriest had 5 tackles and an interception. You got Rodney's analysis. What about the analysis of the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Sabin? Following the scrimmage, he spoke with reporters. Here's his take.
The goal of the scrimmage was to get a lot of players opportunities so that we could evaluate, you know, first of all, how they would go out there and compete, you know, which is kind of a combination of ability to sustain effort, play with mental and physical toughness, show an ability to go out there and execute and do your job, know what to do, how to do it, why it's important to do it that way. Obviously, for the young players, they're going to be a little bit behind in that regard, but if they do the other things, then they're definitely worth continuing to try to develop and coach. So the ones on both sides of the ball, probably did a pretty decent job. A.J. played pretty well. The first offense moved the ball well, didn't finish a couple drives, but first defense played pretty decently. Certainly lots of room for improvement, but I think the most critical thing is the next players on our team, to establish some depth. We have such a young team. When you look at the depth, there's a lot of young players, in those backup positions and backup roles, and how quickly we can get those guys to develop is going to be real critical to establishing the kind of depth on our team that we really need.
The next scrimmage, as I mentioned, will be this Saturday at the stadium, the final one before the season opener against Michigan on September 1st. And Rodney, dare I say it, you think that this scrimmage might even be more physical than the last one?
We'll see, but I think, Gary, when you look at this team and the progress that's being made in fall camp, Nick Sabin saying today after practice, happened to be in there, that he's pleased with how they've responded, especially the last 3 practices have been extremely good. So, Nick Saban's in a pretty good mood.
Yeah, he got a good football team, and it's going to be fun these next couple of weeks as we count it down to that opener September 1st, Saturday night in Arlington, Texas, at Cowboys Stadium against the Michigan Wolverines. Well, still to come tonight on Tider Insider TV, Alabama's offensive line is one of the nation's best, and senior guard Chance Warmack, number 65, is a big reason why. I'll go one-on-one with the native of Atlanta. Also, Tider Insider TV will be taking your phone calls later on in the program. If you'd like to go ahead and jot down the number, it's 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us if you would rather, TITV@WVUATV.com. Stick around. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only, Tider Insider Television, presented each week by Buffalo Rock Bottling Company. Welcome back to Tider Insider Television. Many college football pundits are saying that Alabama's offensive line is the best in the country heading into 2012. At the recent Alabama Media Day, I caught up with senior left guard Chance Warmack and asked him about the high praise he and his teammates have received, as well as their goals for the upcoming season. All right, man. This is last go-around for you. You're one of the bell cows of this offensive line that many are saying could be the best in the country. And I know you can't come to work with that attitude, but, how does that feel to have people saying that about you?
It's definitely an honor, just to get that recognition. And, we just got to look at it as something to come up to and just work every day and work hard and can't let it get to our heads and just keep working.
Obviously, Barrett's moving to center, but he's played every position. But guys like you and him and Fluker and Steen, too, that have been through the war so many years in this league, what's that bond like?
Offensive line is all about experience and games and practices and repetitions. And the more repetitions you get, the better you are as a player. And we're a cohesive unit. We've been together for a long time, and I just feel like, each time we take snaps, it gets better and we get closer together.
Talk to me about Coach Nussmeier and the transition from Coach McElwain to Coach Nussmeier. How smoothly has that gone? What are some differences? Just an overall opinion on how that's working out.
First and foremost, they're both good offensive coordinators, great people. Nussmeier, really aggressive person. Always wants you to run to the line, always upbeat, high-tempo kind of guy. Expects the best out of you, love him to death, good offensive coordinator, great person.
Finally, this team has a chance to make history, be the first BCS, their team in the BCS era to win back-to-back 3 and 4 years. How do you not think about those type of things when you're setting your goals and remain focused on the day-to-day process of getting better?
It's a process. You take it one step at a time, one practice at a time, one day at a time, and get better, just a little bit better every day, and you'll reach your goals. So that's what we're focused on, just the next practice, the next day, and that's how we're going to get better.
I lied. One more question. You had an opportunity possibly to leave. You chose to come back for your senior season.
Yes, sir.
Talk about that decision, and obviously you feel like you can make yourself better as a football player, but I guess for the team as well, obviously you decided to come back to try to fulfill some goals.
I'm blessed, first and foremost, to be a part of this team, and I just felt like I can still develop more as an offensive lineman. I wanted to finish out my last year with my teammates and get my degree in college, just finish school. And, academics is important to me as well. And I'm just happy that this is my final year, with my friends and my teammates, and we're going to have a good year.
Hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed a chance to talk to Chance. And Rodney, I want you to chime in here. On the offensive line, tackles kind of especially left tackles, kind of the glory position. Obviously, center is so important. Guards can get overlooked. But here's a young man at the left guard position that could potentially be a first-round draft pick where a lot of guards go. He's very articulate, as you heard, great student. He gets overlooked a little bit because of Barrett Jones, because last year of Vallejos, because of Fluker. But, man, what a football player and what a great individual.
Yeah, and you know, Gary, he's been a very good player for a few years now, and definitely when you look at him, you look at his body and his ability to move and his strength, he's certainly a guy that, as you mentioned, Gary, is going to be a top draft pick. And not only that, it's not just what he does on the field, but it's also, you know, as Nick Sabin talks about quite a bit, it's recruiting the whole person. Yeah. And you listen to Chance Warmack, you can tell he's got his head on straight, he's focused, and you combine those things that he can do on the field with where he is mentally, and I mean, that's what makes him a special player.
Final thought from you, left to right, on this offensive line. You've got Cyrus Kwanjo, 6'7", about 310, got some experience last year. Left guard, you got Warmack, 3-year starter, 6'3", about 315 or 20. Barrett Jones at center, Outland Trophy winner, 6'5", 310 or so. Right guard, Steen, 6'3", about 305, has played a lot. And at right tackle, you got Fluker, 6'6", let's conservatively say 335, tons of experience. Potentially, based on argument, could this be the best offensive line in Alabama?
I mean, it certainly could be, but, you know, again, it's all relative to the time. But, you know, that 1979 line was pretty good, too, with Bunch, Booth, Brock, Adelette, and Stevenson. Those guys won 2 national championships. And, you know, you look at this group right here, though, Gary, when you're talking about not only, you know, the best Alabama, I mean, there's some good offensive lines around the country. You know, this group certainly has a chance to be the best offensive line in the country this year. And Barrett Jones has already said that he thinks Cyrus Kwanjo can be the best left tackle in the country.
Wow.
That's pretty stout.
It'll be a fun group to watch play. Coming up, Rodney will have his thoughts on freshman Eddie Williams' move from wide receiver to safety following the season-ending injury to junior Jarrett Williams. And don't forget to give us a shout right here on the program. You can reach us at 205-348-WVUA or drop us an email at titv@wvuatv.com. We'll be right back with more Tighter Insider TV, cruising right along on a Tuesday night about 2.5 weeks out from the start of the season. Your phone calls and emails are coming up in this segment. But first, Rodney, some injury news. Of course, Chris Black, his surgery, according to Nick Sabin today, post-practice went well. Jarrett Williams had surgery. Coach Sabin said he hadn't had a chance to talk to the doctor. But let's talk about what that's done. Jarrett Williams, the junior safety out of Pritchard, his injury, meaning the talented freshman from Arnold High School in Panama City Beach, Florida, Eddie Williams, who had been working at receiver, moves back to safety. He played both positions very well in high school. Your thoughts on this move?
Well, again, I think that it's not something that's really unexpected in terms of what Eddie Williams had done in high school, Gary. A lot of people thought he and Landon Collins were the top 2 safeties in the country last year. And, you know, the fact that he was going to come in as a wide receiver, you know, he could give Alabama that big presence, kind of like, in terms of Julio Jones and the size that he had. But, you know, his skills as a safety, he could be outstanding.
Of course, depending on what happens, he might be worked some again at wide receiver. We don't know. Alabama has some depth at both positions, even with the injuries to Black at receiver and Williams at safety.
Well, you look at him there. Look how long he is. I mean, you remember last year on Tighter Insider Radio, we had his high school coach on there, and he said, listen, he said, I'm not ruling out the possibility that he doesn't gain 30 or 40 pounds and become a linebacker, even a rush-in type because of his frame. I mean, he certainly could. I'm not saying he is, but, you know, you just look at him, Gary, and he brings so much in terms of potential to what he could do and versatility.
All right, talented football player, no doubt about that. Again, the injury update from today following practice, Coach Sabin said Chris Black's surgery went well. Jarrett Williams has had surgery too. Coach Sabin had not talked to the doctor yet, but of course they're expecting both those guys to get back to work on their rehab. All right, Rod, let's take some phone calls. Let's start off down in Moundville and talk to John. John, welcome into the program.
Yes, sir. I just wondered, do you think Alabama will go to undefeated this year?
Well, John, they certainly have a good opportunity in our summer previews. Both Rodney and I picked them to go 12-0 in the regular season. Of course, we'll break it down again game by game as the season goes on, but certainly they've got an opportunity. But it's hard, you know. I mean, since Coach Sabin's been here, there's still only been one undefeated, untied season. That was the championship season of 2009. They went 12-0 in the regular season of 2008, lost a couple games there at the end, lost 3 games in 2010, and even lost one last year.
Yeah. You know, I've said it. They're a great-looking team, Gary. The talent is there, but you never know sometimes how the ball's going to bounce.
All right, let's take an email. We've got an email from over in Trussville. Bob wants to know, Travell Dixon, why did he leave? And I wanted to get this email in because we didn't talk about it at the top, but Travell Dixon, talented cornerback out of Eastern Arizona Community College, originally from South Florida. A lot was expected of him. Rodney didn't make it long.
Well, and I mean, sometimes that happens. You know, that's what recruiting's all about. Sometimes you have guys that for whatever reason don't pan out. To answer your question, I mean, we really don't know why he left other than he said it was for family reasons, wanted to get back closer to home. But, you know, Alabama's got a lot of competition, Gary. You look at Deion Ballou, and I've said it here, keep an eye on number 13 at cornerback because I think he's going to be very special. John Fulton has worked really, really hard. Geno Smith, even a freshman from Atlanta, he's a guy that I think is going to have an opportunity to possibly see some playing time as well. So, you know, it's all about the willingness to compete.
Before we go back to the phones, you mentioned recruiting. One area this staff does such a good job in, Rodney, is their consistent recruiting in terms of all positions. They don't ever seem to get too low on numbers at any particular position. They really cover their bases well and always seem to have depth everywhere.
Yeah, well, they're very thorough in what they do and their needs. Certainly, they know what they need and they can project ahead. And they've done a great job of that. You know, I know it, and it's really difficult, Gary, especially when you have guys who are, you know, sophomores going into their junior year. And you might actually lose them after their junior year because of the fact that these guys, a lot of guys are going early. You talk about Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, Julio Jones, all these guys. So you've got to constantly, it's not like it was when they were here 4 and 5 years.
Let's get one more phone call in before we go to break. Let's talk to our buddy Joseph here in Tuscaloosa. Joseph, what's up?
Oh, Gary, Rodney, what's happening with y'all?
Hey, man.
Hey, but let me just, who's going to be the leaders on the defense this year?
All right, Joseph, for my money, it's probably going to start with Nico Johnson, just in terms of his character, his experience, a lot like Barrett Jones on offense. This is a guy that really loves playing football for the University of Alabama. It's such a good example. Right?
Well, I think he is, but there's a lot of guys.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you're going to have a really good team, you've got to have a lot of great leaders. You look last year, certainly there was Upshaw and there was Hightower and others. But you look at this team right here, Joseph, defensively, and I think, you know, Jesse Williams, a guy, even though he's only been here a year, now all of a sudden he's taken a leadership role. If you could see him out at practice working one-on-one with freshman Darren Lake, you could kind of see that leadership coming out of Jesse Williams. You've got Damian Square, who's been around for 5 years. He looks better than I've ever seen him look, and he's obviously taken a leadership role. Gary mentioned Nico Johnson. There are several other guys. Robert Lester. I mean, when you're going to have a great team, you've got to have several leaders, and this team has them on both sides of the ball.
All right, we've got to take a timeout. More phone calls coming up. John in Bessemer, stay on hold. We'll get to you after the break. Also, you can email us as well. Phone number again, 205-348-WVUA. More Tider Insider Television. More phone calls and emails right after this station. Phone lines are open at 205-348-WVUA. John got tired of holding over there in Bessemer. You know what, Toby? In Oakman? That means you're first up. Toby over in Oakman. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, we're great.
That time's about here. I just want to ask, do you think Xavier Dixon can see a lot of playing time this year?
He should, Toby, and he is in the mix for a starting position, Rodney. Of course, they got a lot of guys that are kind of in the mix there on the outside.
Yeah, very talented kid, sophomore, and you look at him, Toby, and I think that when you look at the outside linebackers, Nick Sabin said last week he's going to play the two best guys. He's not really worried about Jack and Sam as the terminology goes. He just wants the two best guys out there. Adrian Hubbard's a guy that's another sophomore that's really talented. He's got a great opportunity to start on one side. I think Xavier Dixon, if he continues to progress, he'll probably nail down that other spot. But again, Alabama's going to play a lot of guys, Gary. They're going to move guys in, give them roles. So Xavier Dixon's certainly one of those guys that can nail down a spot, but you got Tanae Patrick still in the mix. You've got Jonathan Atchison, guys that have been around a while. They're certainly in the mix as well.
All right, Billy from York called me today with a question. We're going to get to that question, Billy, for you in a moment. But first, we got James live on the air from over in Rainbow City. James, how are you? James, you with us?
Yes.
Yeah, hey, go ahead, James. You're on Tider Insider TV.
I'm doing great. How y'all guys doing?
Doing super, man.
My question is, who is it look like going to be our kickoff return man this year?
Yeah, James, good question. We've talked about it on a couple of programs. There's a lot of guys in the mix. I mean, there really are. Kristen Jones is one. Bradley Silva is a possibility. Rodney,
there's a whole
Cooper, yeah,
Amari Cooper. Yeah. But I think the two, and this is just a guess. Certainly things can change, James. But I think right now I would probably put my money on D. Milliner and Christian Jones. Now, again, who knows? But that's who I would think.
And Coach Sabin in the past has used more than one return man on several
It
occasions.
could change.
Of course, when
It
they
could
had
change.
Arenas, he was pretty much the guy. But last year with Mays, but he's used numerous guys, so it's something to watch. So good numbers there. Okay, we want to get this email in. It's not actually an email, but Billy from York called me earlier today. There's a lot of interest in Darren Lake down there. He went to Sumter Central. He wants you, Rodney, specifically to comment on the big young freshman defensive tackle's progress.
Well, I mean, he's really raw. Everybody knew that, but he has all the tools. Gary, great looking. I mean, he's huge. There's no doubt about that. He's 320, 330 plus, and Gary, I think he's going to be an outstanding nose guard at some point. He just needs to learn what he needs to do, kind of acquire some technique. But they say he's strong as a bull.
Yeah, I was told by somebody, in the athletic department that once he learns the game, he's still learning the game, as you alluded to. Look out, he could be really, really scary. Hey, thanks for those phone calls and thanks for the emails as well. We're going to come back and wrap up this edition of Tider Insider TV right after this. Don't you touch that dial. Hey, we appreciate you joining us. This show's been on a long time, and it's because of great viewers like all of you joining us tonight. Hey, Rodney, before we get out of here, TiderInsider.com's got all your recruiting updates. I mean, you've been hot and heavy. What's out there right now?
Well, we have been talking. We had a good interview with Marquez White, a prospect that Alabama's recruiting, among others. So, we're following the recruiting, but also, Gary, we've really focused on camp and had a lot of photos. So, if people want to really see how this team looks, they can get an up-close glimpse of hundreds and hundreds of photos we've popped on our site.
That's TiderInsider.com, still only $48 a year. All right, it's dinner time tonight. Southland Restaurant over in Cottondale. I'm telling you, folks, it's been around a long time, but if you've never tried Southland Restaurant, do yourself a favor. Their meat and free lunch specials are available all day long, even at dinner. And that salad bar with the hoop cheese, can't wait. Also, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch the replay tonight at 10:35. It's also going to be available on our website later this evening at WVUATV.com. For Rodney Orr, our director, Jen Hamner, and our entire TITV staff and crew, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.